Told my fiancée she's getting too close with her male best friend. She said, "You're insecure, and he's been in my life before you. If you make me choose, I'll always pick him." So I did, canceled the wedding, and kicked them both. 4 months later, she came back pregnant and sobbing. All right, Reddit. Susan and I were getting married. Then she dropped, "Hey, Chad's in town and needs a place to crash." I'm not the jealous type, didn't mind at first, until they started acting way too close for just friends, if you catch my drift. I called it out. She didn't like that, so I kicked them out and canceled the wedding. Here's how it all unraveled. Update at the bottom, but seriously, read the whole thing. It gets wild. I, 31 male, run a custom motorcycle shop in Austin that's been killing it since I opened 3 years ago. 6 figures annually, featured in Bike Week mags, the whole deal. Got laid off from my engineering job, used the severance to lease an old garage and turn it into something real. First year was hell. Now, celebrities fly in for custom builds. The shop's got this industrial vibe that chicks either love or hate. Exposed brick, vintage signs, classic rock playing, and the constant smell of motor oil and metal. I've got 2 full-time mechanics, both guys who know their stuff and don't create drama. Andrew's this old-school Harley guru, and Allie's a younger dude who's a wizard with sport bikes. 2.5 years ago, I'm at this charity auction for wounded veterans when this smoke show walked up to my table. Meet Susan, 27 female, works as a PR manager for some tech company downtown. Blonde, fit, drives a BMW her daddy bought her, went to UT on daddy's dime. You know the type. The auction was at some fancy hotel ballroom, black tie affair where everyone's trying to outbid each other on golf packages and fine dining experiences. I'd bought a table because my business was doing well, and I figured it was good for networking. Plus, supporting veterans felt right. My dad's military, and I respect guys who served. Susan shows up in this little black dress, scanning the room. When she spotted me in my tailored suit, yeah, I clean up nice when I have to, she made her move. Now I'm not gonna lie. She was out of my league looks-wise, but I had something she wanted. Plus, my shop was getting buzz, and she loved being seen with the cool motorcycle guy at her corporate events. My best friend was there that night, watching me work my magic. Daniel's this dude who can roast paint off a car, but somehow makes everyone love him for it. 32, works in construction management, built like a brick house but funnier than most stand-up comedians. He's got this sixth sense about people that's scary accurate. Bro, that chick's about as real as WWE wrestling. I should have listened to him right then. But Susan was hot, seemed interested in what I did for work instead of being embarrassed by it, and didn't mind getting her hands dirty when she came by the shop. At least not at first. The early dating phase was actually pretty solid. She'd swing by after work sometimes, bring dinner from whatever trendy spot downtown, and watch me work on bikes. Asked good questions, seemed genuinely interested in the craftsmanship aspect. Even got her hands dirty helping me polish chrome on this vintage shovelhead I was restoring. My dad's reaction when I first brought her around was classic. Pops is 65, retired Air Force mechanic, and has zero filter. Dude will tell you exactly what he thinks whether you want to hear it or not. But he's usually right, which makes it worse. She's pretty, son, but watch yourself. Girls like that have expensive taste and high expectations. Make sure she's with you for the right reasons. Fast forward through the whole dating dance, and 10 months ago, I popped the question. Dropped 8 grand on a ring she kept hinting at. Wedding was set for 1 month from now. The ring shopping was an education in itself. Spent 3 weekends hitting every jewelry store in Austin, while Susan explained cut, clarity, and color like she was teaching a masterclass. She had screenshots of her friends' rings on her phone for comparison, which should have been a red flag right there. But I was making good money, and figured if I was going to do it, might as well do it right. My dad's reaction when I told him about the ring price was priceless. 8 grand? Son, I bought your mother's engagement ring for $300 in 1987, and she's still wearing it 35 years later. Your mother cried when I gave it to her, not because of the size, but because of what it meant. Here's the thing though, in 2.5 years of dating, this girl never once mentioned having a best friend named Chad. Yes, that's actually his name, from college. Not once. And trust me, Susan talks about everyone and everything. I know her yoga instructor's divorce details, her co-worker's dating life, even her hairdresser's family drama. She's got opinions about people I've never met and probably never will, but somehow Chad never came up. For someone who documented every friendship and connection, this was suspicious as hell. Until 2 months ago, when she dropped this casual announcement about her friend Chad from college moving to Austin for work. 2.5 years and this is news to me? Something's not adding up. Chad rolls into town and immediately I can tell dude's type. 29 years old, 6 feet 2 inches, looks like he stepped off a magazine cover. Works for McKinsey, drives a brand new Porsche Cayenne, probably spends more on his skincare routine and manicured nails than most guys spend on their entire wardrobe. McKinsey's one of those consulting firms that charges companies millions to tell them stuff their own employees already know. Chad's got that typical consultant swagger. Talks in buzzwords, name drops clients, acts like he's personally responsible for Fortune 500 success stories. But it's not just his looks that set off alarm bells, though. It's how Susan acts around him. I've seen her excited before, but this was different. The way she hugged him at the airport, jumping up and down like a teenager meeting her favorite celebrity. The way she introduced us was even worse, like she was introducing her tax accountant, while Chad gave me this weak, soft handshake and immediately started talking to Susan like I'm invisible. Then he's pulling out his phone showing her pictures, some inside joke about spring break in Cancun, completely ignoring the fact that I'm standing right there. The spring break photos were particularly annoying. Chad scrolling through shots of him and Susan on some beach, both looking like they stepped out of a resort commercial. She's in a bikini that leaves nothing to imagination. He's shirtless showing off his gym membership, and they're posed like a couple in every single shot. Remember when we went parasailing? Chad asked, showing her a photo of them harnessed together. Oh my God, yes. That was amazing. Susan practically squealed, leaning into him to get a better look. I'm standing there wondering why my fiancé never mentioned going parasailing with some dude, let alone having photos of it. Daniel was with me. He'd driven me to the airport because my truck was in the shop getting new tires. And he's giving me that look like, bro, you seeing this? Daniel's facial expressions are better than cable TV. The man can communicate an entire roast session with just his eyebrows. I tried to be cool about it. Maybe they're just catching up, right? But 45 minutes of being a third wheel while my fiancé giggles at some other dude's stories was my limit. When I tried making conversation about Chad's work, he starts bragging about his mid-six-figure salary and staying at the Four Seasons on the company's dime. McKinsey really takes care of us, Chad said, adjusting his Rolex. First-class flights, five-star hotels, unlimited expense accounts. It's pretty sweet. Before I can respond with anything about my business success, Susan jumps in offering our guest room. Our place, my house that I bought and pay the mortgage on. The house I'd been busting my ass to pay off early so we could start our marriage debt-free. When I tried to object, pointing out that the Four Seasons seemed more his speed anyway, she immediately shut me down. Babe, it's okay. Come on, he's an old friend. Old friend that somehow never existed until 2 months ago. On the drive home, Daniel was already warming up his material. Homeboy's got the loyalty of a rental car. Plus, he was checking out that bartender while your girl was talking to him. I hadn't noticed the bartender thing, but Daniel notices everything. So Chad moves into my guest room temporarily. Dude's made himself completely at home, using my gym equipment, eating my food, even had the balls to rearrange my living room furniture because it wasn't conducive to conversation. My home gym is in the converted garage space. Olympic weights, squat rack, heavy bag, the works. Took me 2 years to put together piece by piece. Chad starts using it like he lives there, never cleaning up, leaving his protein shaker bottles in the sink, adjusting all my equipment settings. But the furniture thing pushed me over the edge. Came home one day to find my living room completely rearranged. My leather sectional moved to face the kitchen instead of the TV. My coffee table replaced with some modern art piece Susan bought. Took down my vintage Harley posters, because abstract paint blobs are obviously better, right? What the hell is going on, Susan? Who gave your friend the permission to move things here? OMG, lower your voice, Blake, Susan hissed. He's used to a more sophisticated aesthetic. Sophisticated aesthetic. In my house. Then he should get his own place. She didn't like that. Started defending him immediately. I was watching Susan transform. Suddenly, nothing I did was good enough. My house needed to be more sophisticated for Chad. My drink selection was embarrassing. I needed to dress better because Chad was used to a certain standard. She wanted me to become some preppy country club version of myself to impress this freeloading pretty boy. Susan started shopping for my clothes too. Showed up with bags from Nordstrom full of button-down shirts and khakis that looked like Chad's uniform. I pointed out that I already had clothes and my own style. She said I needed to elevate my look for our social circle. Our social circle. Since when did we have a social circle that required elevation? They had constant inside jokes. College stories, spring break trips, people I'd never heard of. I'm sitting in my own living room feeling like an outsider, while they reminisce about their glory days. When I'd try to join the conversation, Susan would shut me down saying I wouldn't get it, because college was different back then. Yeah, sorry, I didn't go to fancy UT and spend daddy's money on spring break trips. I was trying to build something real instead of partying away my 20s. Their college stories always involved parties, expensive trips, and situations that sounded more like dating than friendship. Formal dances where Chad was Susan's date because she couldn't find anyone else. Daniel came by one evening and witnessed the whole performance. After Chad and Susan went out for their nightly catch-up walk, he let me have it. Bro, I've seen some pathetic stuff in my time, but watching you get pushed around in your own living room takes the cake. What the heck is going on here? Tell him to get the hell out. Every evening after dinner, Chad and Susan would go for these long walks around the neighborhood. Just the two of them, talking about whatever they talked about, while I cleaned up dinner or worked on bikes in the garage. But it got worse when my dad stopped by the next weekend for our usual Sunday visit and got his first look at the Chad show. My dad and I have this tradition. Every other Sunday, he comes over and we grill steaks and work on whatever project I've got going. These Sundays are sacred to me. Pops walked into my living room, saw Chad sprawled on my couch in his fancy athleisure, eating my food and watching Susan fuss over him like he's visiting royalty, and just stared. The silence stretched for about 30 seconds before he spoke. "Who's the Ken doll?" Chad tried to introduce himself with that fake consulting charm, talking about his exciting work and how grateful he was for our hospitality. My dad just nodded politely and walked away. That's when you know Pops doesn't like someone. He gets polite. We stepped onto the back deck and Pops didn't waste time. That boy's not looking for an apartment. He's already found one. Yours. And your girl's acting like she's already moved in with him. He cut through the nonsense. I've been married for 35 years. I know what just friends looks like, and that ain't it. That boy's got designs on your woman, and she's letting him have them. Things got seriously messed up when Chad started taking over our wedding planning. This dude had opinions about everything. The music, the flowers, the food, even the groomsmen gifts. And Susan was eating it up, constantly referencing Chad's amazing taste and how he understood what she liked better than anyone. Better than your fiancé who you're marrying in a month? The music situation was particularly annoying. Susan and I had already picked out songs, mixture of classic rock, some country, stuff that represented both of us. But Chad thought our playlist was too basic, not sophisticated enough for the venue. He spent hours making a new playlist full of jazz and indie songs that nobody would dance to. "Trust me, this will create the perfect ambiance," Chad explained, scrolling through his Spotify premium account on my laptop. "Your guests will appreciate the elevated musical selection." But the breaking point came during our cake tasting. Chad had to come because he understood Susan's refined palate. Susan had never mentioned having a refined palate in 2.5 years of dating. She ate pizza, burgers, tacos, normal food. But suddenly she's got this sophisticated palate that requires expert consultation from Chad. When we finally picked a cake, Chad's choice naturally, Susan turns to him with this look of pure adoration. "You always know exactly what I want." She asked Chad for approval on our wedding cake. The dude who'd been in town for weeks somehow understood what my fiancé wanted better than I did after 2.5 years. When I questioned why his opinion mattered more than mine, Susan called me insecure. Insecure. For wanting my fiancé to value my opinion. "Chad just has really good taste," she explained. "He knows what works for events like this." Our wedding was now just an event that required Chad's expertise to execute properly. When I told Daniel about the cake incident, he nearly spit out his drink. "Barbie asked Captain Consultation for approval on your wedding cake? Bro, she's not marrying you. She's holding you hostage while she figures out if Chad's gonna make it official." Now this is where the whole thing cracked open. Last week I'm working late in my garage, rebuilding an engine for this custom Harley project, when I heard them talking on the back patio. They thought I couldn't hear over the music, but I've got good ears from years of listening to engine problems. The bike was a 1977 Shovelhead that some guy wanted completely restored to original specs. Beautiful machine, but the engine was shot. I'd been working on it for weeks, staying late to get the timing perfect. It was meditative work, taking apart something complex and rebuilding it better than before. I had classic rock playing while I worked, volume low enough to concentrate but loud enough to enjoy. I had the garage door open. Lucky thing, because that's when I heard them. "Susan, are you really sure about this whole marriage thing?" The question stopped me cold. I shut off my impact wrench and listened. "Blake is a good guy," Susan said, but her voice sounded weird, uncertain, like she was trying to convince herself. "Good guys finish last, Susan. You deserve someone who matches your intellect, your ambition, your class. Your class." There it was. Chad had been dancing around for 6 weeks. I wasn't in Susan's class. Not smart enough, not ambitious enough, Not good enough for her social circle? It's complicated, she said, and I could hear the doubt in her voice. It doesn't have to be. You know there's always been something between us. Always been something between us. 6 years of friendship, and this preppy manipulator had never stopped wanting her. He'd been playing the long game the whole time, positioning himself as the superior choice while undermining my relationship with Susan. Think about what we could have. What we've always been building toward. Building toward. For 6 years, while she was dating other people, while I was falling in love with her, Chad had been waiting and building toward this moment. I shut off the music and went inside. But sleep wasn't happening. The next morning, I called Daniel first thing. Finally! I was wondering when Captain Cuckold was going to show his true colors. What did you hear? I told him everything. The whole conversation, word for word. Bro, that dude just told you exactly what he's been planning this whole time. Question is, what are you going to do about it? What was I going to do about it? Well, that's when things starts getting interesting. That afternoon, I decided to force the situation. I told Susan it was time Chad found his own place, that we needed space to focus on us with the wedding 3 weeks away. Chad needs to find his own place, I said when Susan got home from work. Wedding's in 3 weeks and we need to focus on us. The reaction was immediate and nuclear. She called me selfish for wanting Chad out when he was trying to establish himself in a new city. When I pointed out he had a six-figure job and could afford his own place, she threatened to postpone the wedding if I was going to be jealous and controlling. He's my oldest friend, Blake. How can you be so heartless? There it was. Postpone our wedding because I want her friend out of my house. You'd postpone our wedding for Chad? I'd postpone our wedding because you're acting paranoid and controlling. Paranoid. For not wanting another man living in my house. For wanting my fiancé to prioritize our relationship. So I asked her straight up, if she had to choose between me and Chad right now, today, what would she say? She stared at me for way too long. The silence stretched until it became its own answer. I could see her brain working, trying to figure out the right answer that would let her keep both of us. That's a ridiculous question. It's a simple question. If you had to choose right now, who would you pick? I shouldn't have to choose between my fiancé and my friend. But if you did? Another pause that lasted forever. I watched her face, saw the moment she realized there was no good answer, no way to avoid the truth. Then, Chad's been in my life longer. 6 years versus 2.5 years. Chad wins. The answer hit me like a punch to the gut, but it also clarified everything. She'd made her choice. She'd been making it for 6 weeks, probably longer. I was just the last one to know. I called Daniel immediately after she stormed out. She chose him, bro. Of course she did. Princess wants her prince, not the mechanic. I spent that day making calls. Called my lawyer first. Wanted to know where I stood legally. In Texas, engagement rings are conditional gifts. If the wedding's called off, I get the ring back regardless of who ends it. Good to know. Called the venue, the caterer, the band, the photographer. Canceled everything. Lost some deposits, but saved myself from a much bigger mistake. The venue manager was understanding. Apparently, wedding cancellations happen more often than you'd think. Better to lose a deposit than pay for a whole wedding to the wrong person. The caterer was less understanding. $5,000 down the drain, but they'd already ordered specialty items. The photographer was cool about it. Offered to do a photo shoot with my bikes instead, which actually sounded pretty awesome. Then I called my boys. Daniel, my brother Liam, Andrew from the shop, and my cousin Rick who works in private security. Told them to come over that evening. I was going to need witnesses for what came next. Liam drove down from Dallas. He's 2 years older and has zero patience for drama. Andrew closed the shop early and brought sodas. Rick showed up in his off-duty security gear, looking like he was ready for trouble. Daniel showed up first, carrying a cooler of energy drinks and wearing his biggest grin. This is gonna be better than pay-per-view. You finally gonna grow a pair and kick these freeloaders out? When Susan and Chad got back from dinner, another meal I wasn't invited to, another decision made without consulting me. I was waiting in the living room with my crew and some paperwork. The look on their faces when they walked in was priceless. Chad went pale, Susan went red. Blake, we need to talk about this morning, Susan started. But I cut her off. Actually, we don't. Chad, you've got until tomorrow morning to get your stuff out of my house. Excuse me? Susan's voice hit that high pitch that means trouble. And Susan, here's your 30-day notice. You're moving out too. She looked at the eviction papers like they were written in a foreign language, then at me, then at my 4 buddies sitting there like a tribunal. When she saw I was serious, her face went nuclear. The whole scene played out exactly as expected. Her claiming I couldn't just take back an engagement ring, me explaining Texas law about conditional gifts, Chad trying to play peacemaker until Rick offered to help him find his room. Rick's got this way of standing that makes people nervous. 6'4", 250 pounds of muscle, and 20 years of dealing with actual problems. Chad took one look at him and decided cooperation was the better part of valor. Susan tried to argue that people can have friends of the opposite sex, that I was being unreasonable and controlling, but the evidence was overwhelming. She'd choose Chad over me, postpone our wedding for him, and taken his advice on everything from flowers to furniture. Ring, Susan. Hand it over. She threw the ring at me. I caught it midair. All that time tuning carburetors paid off. Fine. Take your stupid ring, but don't come crawling back when you realize what you've lost. I know exactly what I'm dodging. Daniel couldn't resist. Give it a week. Money says they're posting couple photos by Friday. Next morning, Chad's gone. Packed up his designer luggage and his skincare products and slithered back to his fancy hotel. Susan spent the day crying and throwing things into boxes, while my boys made sure she didn't accidentally damage anything on her way out. Andrew and Ali helped her load her stuff into a U-Haul. By noon, my phone was exploding. Her parents, her sister, her bridesmaids, even some of her co-workers. Everyone had something to say about what a terrible person I was for humiliating Susan like this. Her mom called first, screaming about how I'd embarrassed their family and destroyed her daughter's happiness. When I tried to explain that Susan had chosen Chad over me, she hung up. Her dad called an hour later, more reasonable but still angry. Sir, I didn't humiliate anyone. I just decided not to marry someone who doesn't want to marry me. My dad was sitting next to me during most of these calls, shaking his head and occasionally making comments like, "That woman's got some nerve," and "These people are delusional." When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Your girl showed you exactly who she was. Good thing you were paying attention. Her bridesmaids were sending group texts calling me controlling and manipulative, unable to handle Susan having male friends. According to them, I was the problem for not trusting Susan's friendship with Chad. Male friends. Friends don't live in your house, rearrange your furniture, and tell you that you deserve better than your fiancé. Meanwhile, Susan's posting on Instagram about toxic masculinity and insecure men who can't handle strong women, really painting herself as the victim. Her story was that I'd thrown her out for having a friend, that I was insecure and controlling. The comments were split between her sorority sisters supporting her version and people who knew the real story calling her out. A few mutual friends reached out privately asking what really happened. Daniel was having a field day with her social media posts. Look at this one. Sometimes you have to cut toxic people out of your life. Yeah, good thing you cut yourself out of his life, sweetheart. Within 5 days of moving out, guess where Susan ended up? Chad's new downtown loft. What are the odds? Chad had apparently found a furnished apartment in one of those luxury high-rises downtown, and Susan moved right in as his temporary roommate while she figured out her next steps. Their social media told the whole story in real time. Suddenly, they're posting photos together constantly with captions about getting through tough times with real friends and being grateful for people who truly support them. The photos got progressively more couple-ish while they maintained the fiction of just being friends. First, it was innocent stuff, but the body language in every photo told a different story. Daniel kept sending me screenshots because he thought I'd be mad. But honestly, I was relieved. Watching their little performance just confirmed I'd made the right call. Look at this caption. So grateful for friends who really understand me. Yeah, friends who understand you need to get naked together. My dad's take was simpler. Son, actions don't lie. Those two are together now. Probably were together before. And you're better off without either of them. 3 weeks later, what would have been my wedding day. I'm at the gym when I meet Yulia. She's a physical therapist, owns her own practice, and doesn't cry when someone disagrees with her. I'd been hitting the gym hard since the breakup, partly for stress relief, and partly because I had extra time without wedding planning consuming my evenings. Yulia was doing deadlifts at the squat rack next to mine, perfect form, lifting more than most guys in the gym. When she noticed me watching her technique, she smiled and asked if I was checking her form or just being creepy. Checking your form. Most people lift with their back instead of their legs. You actually know what you're doing. We grabbed coffee after the gym and she asked what I did for work. When I told her about the motorcycle shop, her eyes lit up. That's so cool. Is it true that Harleys are harder to handle than sport bikes? No shame about blue-collar work, just genuine interest and respect. When I offered to teach her to ride, she jumped at the chance. Yulia's different from Susan in every way that matters. She's got her own money, her own business, her own goals. Doesn't need anyone to take care of her or validate her choices. When we go out to dinner, she insists on splitting the check until I convince her to let me pay. We weren't officially dating, though. I wasn't jumping to another relationship that fast. But we were enjoying each other's company as friends. For now. When Yulia met Daniel and my dad a month later, Daniel's verdict was immediate approval. Bro, she looks at you like you're the only guy in the room, not like she's shopping for a husband. Daniel, we're not dating yet. Shut up, dude. You're acting like it's rocket science. My dad's approval was even better. Son, this one's a keeper. I can tell. 4 months after the breakup, I'm at my shop working on a custom job when my phone rings. Unknown number, but I answered anyway because sometimes customers call from different phones. Blake? It's me. Susan. Crying. Hard. My first instinct was to hang up immediately. We had nothing to talk about. But something in her voice made me stay on the line. How'd you get this number? Please don't hang up. I need to talk to you. She'd gotten my number from Andrew, apparently. Showed up at the shop crying. Convinced him to give her my personal cell because it was an emergency. Turns out she made a horrible mistake and needed me back. The kicker? She was pregnant, Chad was gone, and she had nothing. He'd used her, told her he'd always loved her, gotten her to break up with me, then disappeared the second she told him about the baby. Sounds like you picked the wrong guy. I picked wrong. You were the right guy. You're stable and dependable and good and beneath your social class. I remember. Blake, please, I have nothing. Chad moved back to Denver without telling anyone. My parents are furious with me. I can't afford my apartment alone. Apparently, his consulting firm offered him a transfer to Denver, and he took it immediately. Didn't tell Susan, didn't discuss it, just informed her 2 days before he left. Call your friends. They had a lot to say about what a catch you were. They're not talking to me either. Now they think I'm an idiot for leaving you for Chad. Finally, something we agree on. She begged me to give her a chance, offered counseling and prenups, anything I wanted. I do love you. I realized it when I lost you. You realized it when you got knocked up and abandoned by Prince Charming. I hung up and immediately blocked the number. But she didn't give up. Started showing up at my shop, crying in the parking lot about how sorry she was. Bad for business and worse for my peace of mind. First time she showed up bawling in the parking lot, I ignored her. Second time, I had Andrew tell her she wasn't welcome. Third time, I started snapping photos. That's when I filed the restraining order. The look on her face when the bailiff served her with the restraining order was priceless. Pure shock that actions have consequences. That showing up at someone's workplace repeatedly after being told to leave is actually illegal. 6 months later, I'm at a bike rally in Sturgis with Yulia when my phone buzzes. Text from an unknown number with a photo attached. It's Susan, obviously pregnant, working behind the counter at some chain restaurant. The message says, "Thought you'd want to see how your ex is doing. Karma's a witch." A friend, probably one of her former bridesmaids who'd turned against her after the whole Chad situation blew up. Susan had burned a lot of bridges with her choices. But honestly, looking at that photo didn't give me any satisfaction. Just confirmed that I'd dodged a bullet the size of a freight train. Susan looked miserable, tired, swollen, wearing a polyester uniform, dealing with whatever customers throw at food service workers. Yulia saw the text and just shrugged. Sucks for her, but that's what happens when you blow up your life for the wrong guy. No drama, no jealousy, no need to analyze Susan's situation or compare herself. Chad never came back to Austin. Word through mutual acquaintances is he got transferred to the company's London office right after the Denver move. McKinsey probably transferred him to avoid any drama from his Austin situation. Corporate consulting firms don't like personal scandals affecting their reputation. Much easier to ship him overseas where nobody knows about the pregnant ex-girlfriend he abandoned. Susan's parents cut her off completely after the whole mess became public. They were more embarrassed about their daughter's poor choices than concerned about her welfare. Rich people problems. Image matters more than family. Her social media went dark after the restaurant photo started circulating. No more posts about toxic masculinity. Just silence and probably a lot of regret. Last I heard, she was living in some apartment complex on the south side, working double shifts to save up for baby expenses. The BMW got repossessed, the designer clothes got sold, the country club membership got canceled. Meanwhile, Yulia and I were officially dating. She moved into my house. She loves the shop, gets along with my crew, and thinks custom motorcycles are badass. She's already talking about converting part of the garage into a workshop where she can restore vintage furniture. My dad's thrilled about Yulia too. This one's got her head screwed on straight and her priorities in order. She makes you better without trying to change you. Happy for you, son. What can I say? Sometimes the trash does take itself out. Call me old school, but I don't believe in building a life with someone who's still stuck in spring break mode with her friend. If that's insecurity, I'll take it over stupidity any day. Now, Redditors, tell me how you'd handle it if you were in my shoes. Question is, for both teams though, LOL. Edit. All right, Reddit. I thought my story was done, but the universe had other plans. Posting an update soon. This time, sponsored by your favorite Ken doll Chad. You're not gonna believe what happened. Update. What's up, guys? I'm back with an update. 2 months after the restraining order, I'm delivering a custom Ducati to this tech exec in Westlake Hills. Beautiful bike. 2018 Panigale V4 with custom paint, upgraded suspension, full exhaust system, the works. Guy paid cash, no questions asked. Anyways, while I'm going through the delivery checklist, he mentions he's flying to London for meetings with McKinsey consultants. Bunch of pretentious kids who think they know everything about business because they went to fancy schools. Then, he drops the name that made me pay attention. There's this one douche, Chad Morrison, acts like he invented consulting. Kid's probably never built anything real in his life. There you are, Barbie face. Turns out Chad was just as arrogant and useless in London as he'd been in Austin. Guy's supposedly some hotshot, but every recommendation he makes costs us money without improving anything. Classic consultant, great at talking, terrible at doing. Did some digging on LinkedIn after I got home. Chad's posting nonstop about his exciting London chapter and commitment to excellence. Meanwhile, his Instagram shows him partying in clubs and dating British women, while Susan's working double shifts pregnant with his kid. The contrast was stark. Chad living it up in expensive London clubs, while the mother of his child serves hamburgers to pay rent. Even for a douchebag consultant, that was cold. Chad thought London was a fresh start. I just gave Karma his forwarding address. So I wrote the most professional email of my life to McKinsey London HR. Explained how their consultant abandoned a pregnant woman in Austin after breaking up her engagement. Attached screenshots of him partying in London while she works food service to survive. Mentioned how this might not align with their integrity values and corporate responsibility standards. Professional, but pointed. Let them draw their own conclusions about having someone like Chad represent their company. But that wasn't enough. Found Chad's parents through social media, William and Nicole Morrison, big money Dallas real estate family. The kind who care more about reputation than anything else. Found his mom's college roommate Martha on Facebook. She volunteers at a pregnancy center in Austin, helps single mothers get resources and support. Funny how I accidentally ran into her at the farmer's market and mentioned knowing this struggling single mom Susan who got abandoned by some rich Dallas kid named Chad Morrison. Martha was horrified. Nicole Morrison's son? Oh my goodness, she would be mortified. Patricia's always going on about Chad's success and character. She has no idea. 3 weeks later, my client calls about commissioning another bike. Hey, remember that Chad guy from McKinsey? Got pulled from London and transferred back to Dallas. Some HR issue and family pressure. Looked miserable during our video call. Chad's Instagram told the whole story. London party pics stopped dead. Fancy restaurant photos disappeared. One sad post from a basic Dallas office building. Excited for new opportunities back home. The comments were brutal. London friends asking what happened. Dallas family friends posting fake sympathy messages. Someone had tagged Susan asking if this was her baby daddy, which led to a bunch of people connecting the dots. Turns out Martha didn't just call Chad's mom. She organized a Highland Park ladies' intervention, got all her friends involved, made it a community issue. Nicole was so embarrassed she yanked Chad back to Dallas immediately. Not only did she make him quit McKinsey, she forced him to work for Daddy's real estate company at a fraction of his consulting salary. And most importantly, she made him set up a trust fund for Susan and the baby to avoid further scandal. The trust fund was the best part. Chad went from six-figure consulting salary to working for his parents under strict supervision, paying monthly support to the woman he'd abandoned, all because his mommy was embarrassed by his behavior. So now Chad's stuck in Dallas working for his parents, financially supporting the kid he tried to abandon, and his consulting career is toast. Susan's getting monthly payments that probably beat her restaurant wages, plus she qualified for healthcare through the trust fund. Didn't lift a wrench or throw a punch, just let karma work through LinkedIn and soccer moms. And remember, folks, if she ever tells you he's just a friend, smile, nod, and start collecting receipts. Peace out, Reddit. Thanks for following this saga till the end. Appreciate the comments and support.